Bear Grylls,
who is the real-life hero who we all saw in our childhood doing feats that amaze us. Things we could never have dreamed of, all because of his strong mind. But did you know that Bear Grylls wasn't always like this? Bear Grylls, who looked like a fearless and strong man, was vulnerable, scared, anxious, and depressed at times. He says in his autobiography, Mud, Sweat and Tears, fear makes you look tough on the outside but makes you weak on the inside. Bear Grylls' biggest fear was heights, called acrophobia. People with this problem are very afraid of high places. But miraculously, years later, Bear Grylls would jump out of a helicopter in the first scene of every episode of his show. He was also a part of the United Kingdom's Special Forces SAS, a parachute expert. 21-year-old Bear Grylls jumped from 16,000 feet on a mission to Zambia in 1996. But this time his parachute did not open. He opened his parachute in time, but he was still falling fast. When he looked up, he realized that the parachute had not fully opened, so he hurriedly pulled on the rope of the parachute so that the parachute would fully open. While doing all this, he collided with a tree and fell to the ground, and in an instant darkness came before his eyes. He fell on his back and felt terrible pain as he fell. The worst thing was that even though he fell so high, he was conscious. He couldn't even move. He just lay there and was crying loudly. He was hoping that their companions had come to save him, because he was suffering so much that he could not bear it. He said it would have been easier for him to die than endure such suffering. But death was not happening at that time. He said he lay like that for several hours. He felt that his companions rushed him to a hospital in Africa, and he remembers that the doctor came and first gave him an injection in his back. Then his pain gradually started to subside. He thought he was slowly getting better and tried to sit up when the doctor came to him and told him he couldn't walk anymore, leaving 21-year-old Bear Grylls devastated. When he saw his X-ray report, he found that 3 more bones in his skull T8, T10, T12 were fractured. These are the strongest bones in the human back. The man who conquered this mountain was now in such a condition that he could not even walk to the bathroom. He says it wasn't as painful to break bones falling from a parachute as it was to spend a year in the hospital laying in a hospital bed to have these bones reattached. Lying in the hospital, he thought he might never walk again. Adventure was his reason for living. It was this wound that robbed him of his will to live, leaving him sleepless with worry. He hated himself, was angry for his condition. Even after 2 months, he was not recovering. Rather, his condition is getting worse. He didn't like anything like this. Where did you get angry? Gradually, he went towards depression. Those who knew him thought that Bear Grylls is a very positive person. He is very strong mentally. He will face this problem with a lot of courage and positivity. But not that. He was 21 years old and he was very scared. He did not understand the next life, how and what will he do? He could see all of his dreams disappear before his eyes. One night, in the middle of the night, he found a photo frame while lying in a hospital bed. That image was of Mount Everest, Bear Grylls, and his father's dream since childhood that they would one day climb it. Seeing the dust accumulated in the picture frame, he started to think that his dreams were also covered in dust, which he could not bear. No one was with him that night. He bravely stood up with the help of crutches and went to the photo frame to clean the dust. How he would dare himself to survive was embedded in his subconscious mind, and his courage gave him hope to survive. And when he woke up the next day, he remembered what his grandmother always told him. Beer, see, whatever happens in life happens for good. It's just us humans who find ways to get into depression, problems, and trouble ourselves. So whenever you find yourself in any trouble or in problem in life, always remember that whatever is happening as per the will of God. God does not allow anything bad to happen. At that time, he understood the depth of the matter, and he felt the truth that if God had willed, he could have died from this injury in this accident. Since he is still alive, it means that God has something better in mind for him. After that, he stopped worrying about what will happen in his life. What if he can't walk anymore? Will he be able to work in the special forces again? And whenever the overthinking starts to subside, he gets peace of mind and the stress and negativity goes away. As his mind hardened, so did his wounds. He then remembered his closest friend, who once told him that so often God's callings have a birth, a death, and then a resurrection. He thinks he has been reincarnated after this accident. Since I have a new life like a newborn baby, I don't need to worry about the past or the future. He said, life doesn't often give us second chances, but if it does, be bloody grateful. He was grateful for his life, for his broken back, for his dreams. He took the picture of Mount Everest in his hand and said aloud, I will reach the top of Everest when I am well. What helped him the most was his goal. He had no reason to live until then, but when he could not even walk, he made a vow that he would climb Everest. When he used to tell people around him that he would climb Mount Everest when he recovered. People ignored his words, but his goal was very clear. Now he needed to recover as soon as possible. Both his body and mind got a goal so they could work together. After the third month after the accident, the pain began to subside and he was discharged from the hospital 8 months later. He made a full recovery within a year, but doctors told him he could no longer train in the special forces. There was no job, so no money, but he needed 25 lakhs to fulfill his dream, with which he trained to climb Everest and also bought equipment to climb Everest. For this, he wrote proposals to about 250 companies for sponsorship and was rejected each time. Even after facing 250 rejections, he didn't stop. Then the AFA organization helped him to fulfill his dream. 16th May in 1998, 18 months after the parachute accident, he realized his childhood dream. His journey to climb Everest was not an easy one. 4 climbers accompanying him lost their lives, and he had 2 near-death experiences where he narrowly escaped death. But somehow he became the youngest person in Britain to reach the summit of Mount Everest at the age of 23. After that, his story became very famous and people invited him as a speaker at seminars. Many documentaries were made on him, and finally he got the opportunity from Discovery, which brought him worldwide fame, after which everyone started to know him for Man These Wild. And maybe you are one of them, so if you like this video, then like the video and join this channel by clicking the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss the upcoming videos.